May it please the court. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Isaiah Pryce. I'm co-counsel representing on behalf of the prosecution today, Riley Evans. And I just want to say thank you first and foremost, for everyone getting through this long, enduring trial. And I'm here. I would like to provide a roadmap of my presentation. First, I'm going to go into the issue that's been heavily contested between both sides. Then, we're going to look at the evidence and see why you should vote prosecution. Then, we're going to go into the theory of recovery of the other side and why it's not sufficient in this case. Then, I will go into my prayer of relief as to what I'm asking for the prosecution. And I ask you, come with me, and you'll all be in a world of pure justification. I'm not talking about Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory here. We're discussing justice. The sweet, sweet justice that Riley Evans is owed as a member of our society. Let's get into the issue. Negligence. What is negligence, you ask? Negligence is the deviation from a reasonable person's standard of care in society. It's asking the question, what did Nita State University, as a reasonable and prudent university, have the duty of doing in this situation when my client, Riley Evans, was cyberbullied and subjected to the harassment of her classmates and her peers? So we look at what are some factors we can look to consider if there was negligence? Well, we have to look to the duty risk analysis and see, was there a duty imposed on Nita State University to allow for there to be negligent acting? And there was a duty. As we look into their policies in the handbook, we see that their mission for creating the cyberbullying policy is to create a safe and conducive learning environment for all students, Riley Evans included. Then we have to look into if my client was actually bullied. If we take a look at the evidence, screenshots from the Facebook Messenger post in the groups for the mock election, we see that clearly she was being targeted and ridiculed through harassment from her fellow classmates. Now we have to look into, did they know of the bullying? If they knew of it, did Nita State University, were they aware of the situation? Well, as we've seen from the testimonies of Dean Jeffries and Professor Whitstone, we clearly see that they did know of the bullying and harassment. Now, after Nita State University learned of it, was it foreseeable that the bullying and the harassment would continue? I do believe it was foreseeable in this instance, because if we take a look at another part of the evidence provided, we see that this has been a running trend in Professor Whitstone's class. The political mudslinging, just the adversarial nature of these students coming for each other, definitely, I feel like that was foreseeable. Now, did such harassment or bullying continue after it was known to the school and after Riley had complained? Yes, we have evidence saying that after she made it note of it to Professor Whitstone and that it was made note to the university, that it indeed did continue. And we even see that in Morgan Richfield's testimony as well. So the last part of my analysis, court, and why I believe that you should vote prosecution today in the negligence of Nita State University, not only just Nita State University as a university, but agents of the university, is that we also have to look at what did the agents of the university do in this instance. And in this case specifically, we look at Dean Jeffries and Professor Whitstone, who were agents of Nita State University and acting within the scope of their employment. And within the scope of their employment, they failed to make sure what their mission was with the cyberbullying policy. They failed to create a safe and conducive environment for my client, Riley Evans. Go into the other side's case. The defense is saying that there's an assumption of risk, that my client should have known what she was getting into when she signed up for the class. Now, if we take a look at line 43 of Riley's testimony, she stated that she did not sign up for the election. She was picked by Professor Whitstone. And that's not all. Her reasons for joining the class were to learn about the intricacies of the American political system and her interest in politics that she's going to pursue upon receiving her degree at the end of her academic journey. And so, in the assumption of the risk, as explained by the defense, one must know of the risk, appreciate what that risk entails, and then continue their conduct in accepting that risk. The only thing that she appreciated and that she knew of is that enrolling in this class will give her some experience in the political landscape. She did not know and assume the risk of being subjected to incessant cyberbullying and harassment. So therefore, on that ground, jury, you are reasonable people. How do you assume the risk of something that you did not expect to happen? Therefore, the defense must rest on that case. That's their whole theory of recovery, that my client assumed the risk, so she should be responsible for her actions. You know, they kind of sound like Professor Whitstone, almost. Professor Whitstone actually stated in his deposition that he wanted to stifle the creativity. He didn't want to, come into the expression of the students and come into their formation as adults in society. And he tried to paint himself as this good character that was benefiting my client's development. But I think that it was simply a ministerial convenience. As we've seen in the deposition, and we've seen in the exhibits, he's conducted this class for several semesters in the same way. And, it just seems like it was also negligent on Needham State University for allowing him to continue to have this class. In fact, when we asked Dean Jeffries in his deposition, he was not even aware of the second pages of evaluations. He was never aware of any of that. And then again, evidentially, we see that obviously his method finally did not work. He was not renewed a contract at Needham State University. And it's because I believe Needham State University is trying to cover up the sins they committed against my client, Riley Evans. Now we continue. We've looked at the issue. We've looked at the evidence. We've looked at the other side's theory of recovery. Now, what does theory of recovery look like on my part, for our side, for the prosecution? The burden of the prosecution is to prove beyond the preponderance of the evidence that Riley Evans was subjected to negligent treatment when it came to cyberbullying and the bullying that she was subjected to at Needham State University. And then we take a look at the defense, which had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they were not negligent and that my client assumed the risk. Well, there is a bunch of reasonable doubts as to whether or not they fulfilled their duty. And so we go to the preponderance of the evidence. If you take a look at our issue, if you take a look at all the points I mentioned about having a duty to Riley and knowing of the bullying and knowing of the risk and the harassment and continuing to act in a negligent manner, we can all see as bright jurors, as the biggest and brightest jurors that we could ever assemble, you are doing a favor for us, for our society, because as Abraham Lincoln said, jury service is of the highest honor in American citizenship. So I task you today to take a look at the evidence, take a look at the facts, take a look at the issue of the case I presented, and see that Needham State University was negligent and that she was subjected to unfair treatment and it adversely impacted her educational prospects.